the secret on Camden County is out. We can't do a thing about it. The toothpaste is out of the tube. It's not going back in. Yeah. It breaks my heart when we, when I see scalded earth and the trees gone, and we could debate that for a long time. But the thing is, as this is changing, I think it's really critical that we hold on to who we are. But one of the problems, because this community kind of evolved with people coming from all different places, on top of the about 9,000 people who were already here when the base came.
What's up, Camden County? You are catching episode 108 of the Getting in Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Alison Shores from the Camden County Chamber of Commerce. This Getting in Your Business podcast is made possible by our chairman circle sponsors, Georgia Power Company, Georgia's Own Credit Union, Lockheed, Comcast, Sparklight, Plug Power, St. Mary's DDA, TDS Telecom, and Ameris Bank. Thank you to all of our sponsors. All right, guys, today in the studio, I've got a little fun for us. I have got Miss Rachel Baldwin, and if you don't know her, she has been around Camden County to see all the changes, all the things, and she's also been involved with a lot of organizations, some nonprofits, and kind of just a wide gamut of things, not to mention you're a retired educator. The list could go on and on and on, but I feel like in Camden County, we have a lot of people new coming in. We also have, with our military base, it's very transient here. And with everything I see online, people complaining or not knowing stuff. And, I feel like our community as a whole maybe needs a recap of what makes us special and why we're here. And people do want to come here. So you can say all the things you want. There's nothing to do. It's hot. It's this. There's so much to do here. And I think part of appreciating where we are now is kind of going back and talking about where we've been and how we got here and the special people that made that happen. So I thought, let me bring Miss Rachel in here to talk about some of this history and some of these things, because you've been a part of a lot of them. So I don't even know where to start. Other than, first of all, thank you for agreeing to do this.
Well, thank you. I hope it's got to be a good outcome. I am a little nervous about that. And, I'm usually always outspoken, but this is a little bit intimidating. I feel like I'm in a Moon Martian outfit with my headphones and my glasses and my iPad and everything here. But we're going to try to tackle this.
By the end of it, you're gonna want to be your own podcast, or you just wait.
Okay, we'll see.
All right, so let's start. When did you get to Camden County?
I came in 1987. I'm a Georgia girl. I grew up in Atlanta. I left Atlanta at 17 to go to the fine institution of Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College. I made a 2-year college, a 3-year experience. I did transfer to Athens, but that was to work.
Yeah.
And that was really when my working career started. I had a 2-year degree from ABAC in food management, so I was in the food business.
So before Rachel Baldwin became an educator, she was in the food business.
Yes, and I was never, ever, ever, never going to teach school, ever.
Me either, but I didn't.
I had sworn it off for other people. That was nothing that I wanted to tackle. Yeah. But in my work experience, I encountered a huge need for workforce development. I didn't have that word for it at the time. I just knew that the people that I was challenged to find qualified people and people that could follow directions. I had that same experience years later when a lot of things had happened, but I was teaching 6th grade, and I realized there was a huge need for, learning and learning to read correctly, sequencing, being able to distinguish between facts and opinions, all of the things in the classroom related to what I had experienced in the workforce.
Hang on just a second. You said something about facts and opinions, telling the difference. I wish you could go back and teach that course now, because I feel like...
Well, that was actually a 6th grade standard when I first started teaching, and now with social media, it's something that we have completely forgotten about. I didn't realize at the time how important that was. But God has a really unique way of laying out your life, and whether you're paying attention or not, things are happening. And at the age that I have become now, which I don't know how that happened that quickly, I've been able to reflect back that's how these things were coming together. And it all, it all became connected in some way. Mm-hmm. So between Athens and St. Mary's, I had lived in Tifton, Ashburn, Alma, Fitzgerald. I'd lived all over South Georgia, being an Atlanta girl. Mm-hmm. And came to... I had actually visited Camden County maybe in 1975, which that's part of our little timeline here. The President Nixon signed paperwork that allowed Cumberland Island to be run by the National Park Service. And on a college...
So that was in the 70s?
Yes, that was around... I'm having trouble finding my timeline. But anyway... Nixon was the one that approved that, the National Park Service taking over Cumberland Island. So we came down on a college weekend, and when I pulled up to 17 and 40, there was no light.
What?
There was a great big stop sign propped up on sandbags. And I can remember.
At 17 and 40?
Yes.
Okay.
No light. And I saw the marriage and blood test sign. And I kind of didn't understand what that was. I looked down 17, and it just, quite frankly, looked like the most forsaken place I had ever been. And I'm thinking, who would live in a place like this? And, of course, I've lived about 4 blocks from there for the last 40 years now. But as we went to St. Mary's, when we got to exit 3, it wasn't an exit. It was an overpass, from what I remember. And there was nothing but trees once you got past what we call 5 Points in Kingsland. There was really nothing but trees until you got to Dark Entry Creek.
Wow.
And then they had the new high school, which had opened as a result of segregation, because we had formerly had the white high school in Woodbine, and the black high school was the Ralph Bunch School. Those two had come together around 1970, 71, at where the St. Mary's Middle School is now on that campus. It was on the front part of that campus. And so that new school was there. You could tell it was a school, but there was not much landscaping or paving. It was kind of rough. Mm-hmm. We got down to St. Mary's, and where the pavilion is, there was a little, a little trailer shed where you got your ticket to get onto the Cumberland and sail out. And my whole city girl came out when we got to the dock at Cumberland, and there was a porta potty there, and they said, that's the only bathroom. And if you're not back here by 2 or 3 o'clock, you get to spend the night here, which made me not even wanting to leave the dock.
Right.
They said the beach is right over there.
Right over there.
Right over yonder or whatever. And if you've ever been to Cumberland, it's not right over there.
Yeah.
It's through a lot of gnats and, horse, debris.
Yes.
And all kinds of things. And we had brought us a nice little picnic lunch, and I thought we were just going to eat at some little, cafe or something. Yeah. I don't know what I thought, but it was quite the experience. And so I made sure we were back in time for that boat, because I was not spending the night.
Well, my first experience with Cumberland Island, my dad brought me over here when I was probably 8. And so we could spend the night on Cumberland Island. So we came over here. This is, late 80s, very early 90s, probably late 80s. But yeah, it brought me over, and such a different experience than now. But I was so confused. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't understand, these biting gnats. I didn't understand, how did these horses get over here? There were just so many questions. But I was so nervous, that the ferry wasn't going to come back and get us, the next day.
Exactly. So
I can relate.
I wanted to get back to civilization. The irony of that trip was Fred Boyles was in the group of 4 that we went with. He later became the superintendent of the National Park Service at Cumberland Island. And so, one of the most beautiful experiences I've seen in Camden County was when we hosted the Georgia Leadership Group out on Cumberland several years ago. And, we just can't appreciate the beauty that's around us. And
the history.
Right.
So much history.
We have all of these things, and When you look at our social media, it doesn't bring out those qualities that are here. The secret on Camden County is out. We can't do a thing about it. The toothpaste is out of the tube. It's not going back in. Yeah. It breaks my heart when we, when I see scalded earth and the trees gone, and we could debate that for a long time. But the thing is, as this is changing, I think it's really critical that we hold on to who we are. But one of the problems, because this community kind of evolved with people coming from all different places, on top of the about 9,000 people who were already here when the base came. And so, when the base came in the late 70s, early 80s, there still weren't many people here until about the 90s. And that was about the time I came, because when I came in 87, teachers in Camden County were among the highest paid in the state, so that was attractive, But we were, it was kind of like the Wild West. You had businesses come to town with all these plans and all these things they were going to do, and a lot of times, they left. They struggled. They had a hard time.
So back in the 80s and 90s, was it a lot of small business? Was there not a lot of businesses here? What was the climate there?
Since I was on the education side by then, I was kind of watching from a distance, but it seemed like there were a lot of small businesses. There were developments that came in that were going to happen and then maybe didn't happen or didn't happen to the full extent. There was a lot of things going on. You were always meeting new people. And of course, with the Navy, you had people coming in and out. You'd make friends with some, we had several teachers that would come in and then their husbands would get transferred, and, you'd have to say bye and all that kind of stuff.
And not to mention, they're all coming from different parts of the place, just of the country. And I feel like this is a special place. And if you're not from the South or don't know a whole lot about it, it's different. And so, and I think it's different in a good way. There are experiences just being raised Southern that I wouldn't get anywhere else, and I wouldn't trade it. But I feel like, you bring it from all over, and you've got all these different opinions and lifestyles and all the things. So I can imagine that was a fun time.
It was fun. It was interesting, and it was, I was excited when I moved here because we had a Walmart. Of course, I was used to growing up in Atlanta, but it had been several, it had been almost 20 years since I'd lived in Atlanta, and I had lived all over rural Georgia.
I was about to say, and if you had been in Alma and Fitzgerald and, so.
But it was exciting, that we had a Walmart. I think, we had a Piggly Wiggly, and that was where, what is it, Bell's is now. Yeah. And
that's where Piggly Wiggly.
That was where Piggly Wiggly. We had a couple of independent grocers, and there was the history of Roland's Grocery down in St. Mary's. There was an IGA where we talk about where the old bowling center was, but there was a Winn-Dixie in Kingsland across from where the Methodist Church is now. And of course, that building is now the sanctuary for Kingsland Baptist and the gathering place for Kingsland Methodist. I was a member of Kingsland Baptist, but what I couldn't understand is the loading dock and where they put all the old meat wrappers and everything. That was right as she walked out of the door of the Baptist church. Yeah. And I asked a longtime resident, I said, why did y'all allow that to happen? And she said, we were just so glad to get a Winn-Dixie. We just, And I'm making that point because there's a lot you can complain about.
Yeah.
But if all we're going to do is complain about our community and the things we don't like about it, the new people are going to pick up that same attitude. These new folks coming in are going to form that same attitude. If it's so bad, then we need to work on getting it fixed. And people ask me, well, how do you know all this stuff that's going on? Well, I started early. I believe in reading the local newspaper.
I know.
You've
been doing it since as long as I've known you.
I push it on a lot of people. And I read the obituaries. I mean, end to end. Because you find out about people and where they've been and who they are. I know that's weird to people.
Nah.
But reading the local, there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it until you read it and you start making the connections. The first, 10 or 12 times you read it, there probably isn't going to be. Until you those networking connections start clicking. Mm-hmm. But there's so much in that local newspaper. And, of course, we're in a digital age, and newspapers are foreign to so many people. My generation, we're the last analog and the first digital generation. So we're kind of standing on that chasm. But newspapers are to me, are still important. And, I've looked at our other communities that have lost newspapers. Waycross, I believe, lost theirs. There's Blackshear, I think, lost theirs. Mm-hmm. And I think a newspaper is one thing that keeps things connected. But, also being able, just paying attention. Right now, you can be at almost any government meeting you want or don't want to be at. Yeah. But, you can listen to them while you're driving, find out what's going on. So many people are so busy getting a kid to ball practice and dance or soccer or whatever it is and getting the meal on the table and the bills paid. I get it. It's hard to pay attention to everything going on. But I've also seen people that have made a real talent out of that, whether there's one thing, and a lot of times it involves their kid, whether it's the soccer field or it's the swim team or whatever. But to focus, on something that brings positivity to our community and isn't just all the time, doom scrolling on social media and just talking about what a horrible place this is. Because this... it's like we're watching what happened with the World Cup this week, and people realize that this is a great place to live in America.
You are exactly right. That is exactly what's happening because, the people that, especially recently in the last year, have moved here, they are having the time of their life. They feel like they have just won the lottery, and this is a little slice of heaven. And I'm like, and the base captain used to say that, but it is a slice of heaven, and I don't know why people just want to sit on their phones and complain about all this stuff. Get out here and do something and actually experience our community, because there's so many talented people that are bringing things to the table, and so many different groups and people that are trying to help you find your people. And get us connected. I see people all the time that are like, oh, I want to be involved in my community. I'm like, okay, so what does that mean to you? And because you have to start there, because some people being involved means they're 7 days a week, they want to be doing something out in their community. To some people, that just means that they want to maybe volunteer once a month and do something. It just, there's so many different levels of involvement, but I tell people all the time, like, it doesn't take a lot to get involved in one thing or just to educate yourself on something before you go and have all these opinions about it.
Right.
And another thing that I get so disheartened on is that, like, there's a traffic study, and I know I'm not supposed to call it that. It's called something else, but James has me calling in a traffic study. What is it called? Transportation study? Transportation study. Or plan or whatever it is. But, they're holding, they held a town hall, and, they would have answered any of your questions, and not very many people showed up.
I went to one of them, and I think there were more staff than there were, citizens. For years in the school system, we would outreach, with a parent-teacher organization, and there were times when there were more teachers there than parents. It is difficult to create time, but when people say there's nothing to do in Camden County, I just want to pluck my eyelashes out, because there's nothing to do in Camden County because you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
But if all you're doing is looking for entertainment, number one, it's probably going to cost you some money. But the other thing is, it's biblical. you have to give to receive, and I think you get more when you give than if you just wait around for it to happen. And there's so many places where people could get involved. And I want to kind of take this segue. I told you I was going to bring an artifact.
Yes, you did bring an artifact.
And so this is my dad's hard hat. Now, my dad, I'm not pushing Georgia Power, but I was a Georgia Power brat. He worked in the engineering division at the 270 Peachtree building in downtown Atlanta. I was always proud of that. I grew up with all of this Georgia Power paraphernalia sitting on his dresser, wherever. And if you look at this seal, it's Georgia Power, a citizen wherever we serve. And that was a phrase developed by the first president of Georgia Power back, I believe, in 1927, Mr. Arkwright. And that is a slogan that still exists with Georgia Power today. And if you go read about Georgia Power's corporate presence, my dad had the tie tack, the pocket protector, he's an engineer, the mechanical pencils. They all we had pot holders, we had ashtrays, we had everything that said a citizen wherever we serve.
Yeah.
And that became embedded in me in wherever you were. And I watched my dad. Now, my mom was more of an introvert. She kind of kept things running. But Daddy was he was our Girl Scout leader. I mean, he had us marching up hiking up Kennesaw Mountain and all this other kind of stuff, But he would be at the church building bookshelves, or he would make nursery furniture. He was a woodworker on the side, and so woodworking was a big deal for him. But, it was always things that really leaned more toward the community. And everybody has talent. Everybody has an ability.
Thank you. Yes.
They have, and, people right now with my generation, we need young people to show us how to use technology. And the connection that can make. Because they're, the historic side of what's gone on in Camden County. Most people don't know that we were one of the first 8 counties in Georgia that was ever founded in 1777.
Really?
And, we have a big history.
So we're like one of Georgia's original counties.
We are one of Georgia's original counties. We're in the 1st congressional district, okay?
Yep.
That's 14 counties down here on the southeast. And it's not just about Camden County. We're in a symbiotic relationship with those who are around us. Glenn, Charlton, Wayne. We know this last time, Brantley County. Imagine if that had happened to us.
Yeah.
We would have needed the aid of those surrounding counties. There's an educational awareness that I think people need to make about what is going on besides what happens past my driveway.
Agreed.
Or outside of my laptop or my iPad.
Well, and it also goes back to what you're saying with Georgia Power and a citizen wherever you serve. It goes back to like bloom where you're planted. And I feel like I tell the military tour every single Wednesday, and I know Dan Udy does too, is, while you're here, for as long as that is, 2 years, 20 years, if you go and come back, whatever it is, be here and be present and get involved with something in the community. Whatever you like to do. It doesn't have to be something that but if you're good at something, or you love to do something, or, whatever, bring that to the table. Like you were saying, there are so many talented people, and, they're not just talented. They're talented in so many things that I've just learned about people in Camden County, and I love them so much. And I don't understand why people don't want to get involved with stuff like that and get to know people. And, businesses and organizations have done such a good job, especially the last few years, about trying to get people together and doing things in a really meaningful way. Just even like a Live After 5 in downtown St. Mary's, that's happened in the last year. And I have seen so many people actually like coming together and enjoying being together and having fun, and people finding their people. And I think that is so cool. And I wish people would take advantage of that more often than they do. I know it's hard to meet people, but reach out. I always tell people church is a great place to start. If church isn't your thing, there are places to meet people. And I just wish people would come out and do stuff, Whether it's if you like sorting clothes or, at the Salvation Army, or want to get involved in making some of these events happen in downtown, St. Mary's or downtown Kingsland. There's things to do and there's ways to get involved. And people would have a lot more fun if they would just jump in,
Well, I've seen people kind of create their own service niche. You remember Ed Walker? Ed Walker was a very strong member of the chamber for several years. He's passed away now, but his thing was litter. I mean, any chance he got, he would be out picking up trash.
Every April 22nd. Yes. Allison, what are we doing for Earth Day?
Yes. Yeah. And you could be the king or queen of your own little kingdom on one topic,
Yes.
Because not everybody wants to be around a lot of people. Maybe you want to, step out on your own. But I think the reason people are, number one, they're going to use the excuse time. Well, time is how you manage it. But a lot of times if you're engaged, my biggest fear when I retired was going home and just sitting down and, wasting away. And I made sure I didn't do that because I think it's important to keep your mind active, to stay involved, to stay relevant, to, and that does get harder as you age, but it's important, it's important to stay involved. One of my most favorite movie, and it's corny, but it's still always probably going to be my most favorite movie, was It's a Wonderful Life, where Jimmy Stewart, what if he had never lived? What if he had never come along? And, we don't think of some of the things that we do as being significant. But there, when we look at our history of Camden County, there were significant things that had to happen even before the base came, even before, in 1893, the railroad came to Camden County.
Whoop, whoop, big time.
And that actually helped Florida. So, people don't realize all that. They see the word Flagler, they don't know what it means. But Flagler was the one that got, the railroad all the way to Miami.
Okay.
And that's a great history to read. Pull it up on YouTube, look up Flagler. It's what got the railroad to Key West. Now, it failed, but it's what led to getting the highway to Key West. And so, there are endeavors that we can take on either on a micro scale or a macro scale. And I'd rather fail on a micro scale than a macro scale. But it's just important to see how we're standing on the shoulders of people who came before us. And we don't even know their names. And they're not around to take credit for it. The thing is about taking credit, doesn't matter who gets the credit. What matters is that it gets done. But in 1927, we got Highway 17. Now, people say, well, why do I have to get my driver's license at Woodbine? Because that was where a county seat was. And that's, I think they're working on a satellite office or whatever.
But you know why it was Woodbine? You know why that was? Because you had to be a one-day's mule ride from every
other county seat.
Was it county seat or from every? I think it had to be from every corner of your county.
It was something like that.
Yeah.
But it is one reason.
Because people always ask me, and so I had to find out. And that was, it was a one-day's mule ride. And I was like, what?
And so that is why Georgia has almost more counties than Texas, I think, has more than we do. But we've got 159 counties. And this connectivity had to start, just like now our digital connectivity is going on. That physical connectivity of our roads and waterways and all that, it had to happen. And the other thing is our educational connectivity, because we didn't even have a countywide school system until, I don't think, well into the 20s or 30s. Well, no, it was probably integration that brought the countywide school system, or just before integration, because you had pocket schools, 1- and 2-room schoolhouses around Camden County. We had the benefit of the Rosenwald schools, but that was the gentleman that gave out money to build schools for black children. We still have a Rosenwald school over in Kinlaw. I think there were 4 that were original to Camden County, but I think the one at Kinlaw is the only one left.
Yeah.
But as our education system grew, it started connecting more people. I mean, the Camden County High School was in Woodbine until 1970 or 71. And so kids from St. Mary's were riding a bus. You know, we talk about our North End kids now riding the bus. You know, it was going the other way. But as our school system grew, you know, it started connecting the county in a greater way. And of course, you know, we've got one high school. Okay. I could go on and on about the high school because I was there for 23 years. But, you know, when the mill came, because I'm going to link these two back together in a minute, but when the mill came in the early 40s, that was a boom. That was a boom for this county. That was basically paying the highest manufacturing wage east of 75 and south of 16. And so at one time, Gilman Paper was the biggest pulp and paper producer, whatever, in the world.
Why did it shut down? That's probably not where you're going with this.
That's a whole story for another day. But let me talk about the good and the unintended consequences of Gilman. When I taught middle school, I taught sixth grade for 4 years, and I wound up on Fluke. We introduced a career exploratory program at Camden Middle. I went to a conference and they had a grant. And so
you got excited.
I got excited, yeah. And so for 4 years, I had 6th, 7th, and 8th graders for just 6 weeks at a time.
Okay.
I had 6 classes a day, 6 kids. And, 6 classes a day, 6 times a year. So I was seeing a lot of kids, you know. And the 6th grade curriculum was self-awareness, you know, finding out who you are and your personality. 7th grade was career research. 8th grade was developing a high school plan. There was a cultural thing here where I'm just going to go to work at the mill. I called it the Uncle Bubba rule. And, you know, Uncle Bubba's going to get me a job at the mill. And I'm not making light of that. But for many students, academics wasn't a challenge because, you know, I'm going to go to work at the mill.
Right.
When I got into this career thing, you know, the grant encouraged that we participate with our local Chamber of Commerce. Well, okay, where's that? I did. Yeah. I get it. The Camden Chamber actually evolved about the same time I got here, about 1987. Now, at some point in the past, there had been a St. Mary's Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know, so I started, you know, going to what they had as business after hours, you know, meeting people because I needed speakers to come into my class.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah. You know, and I needed some and hey, that's a way you can volunteer, you know, that was an opportunity. But anyway, then Zell Miller introduced a youth apprenticeship program. They wanted 16 pilot sites across the state. We applied for that grant, and we got it. And we were required as a part of the training for that program to come together, all 16 of the sites that had received the grant, and visit all these places all over Georgia that were, you know, model opportunities for students to go to work. Well, it opened up a whole world for me in comparing where Camden County was to other counties all over Georgia. And the biggest thing was we didn't have a technical college. We struggled it. You know, Navy campus was here, and you could go out on base and you could take classes on nights and weekends. Okay. But these were Board of Regents college and university credits. These were not short-term work readiness, trade skill opportunities. And so when I started, in 2000, I started at the high school in 1995 with this youth apprenticeship program. We weren't really paying attention to graduation rate. I mean, that seems strange, but nobody really was, I don't think, at the time. I don't think other systems were really paying attention to it. Zell Miller was. I do remember that. But our graduation rate in 2000 was 50.5%.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what it was. And
that would never fly now.
And Gary Blunt, he had been my boss at the middle school, and then he was at the board office, and then he came to the high school, and he was determined to start getting that graduation rate up. And we started doing a whole lot of things. One was the ninth grade center. I mean, his philosophy was if you can't get them out of the ninth grade, you can't graduate them. So we created a special environment for ninth graders.
Which still exists today.
Yes. We created block scheduling, which we went to a lot of sites and talked to a lot of people. And it was a real push because it was going to have to change the way teachers taught. But we went to block scheduling, which meant we were not on a year-long schedule. In the past, if a kid was failing a class with a 20 average in October, they were going to be in that class until May. Block scheduling was going to change that.
Yeah.
They were going to be on a semester system, and instead of being a 50-minute class, it was going to 190 to 100-minute class to finish it between August and December, and then from second semester, January to May. And people wonder, well, when I went to school, I didn't start school till after Labor Day. Well, we need to match that college schedule.
Well, I'm glad you addressed that because I've probably had that conversation 12 times in the last 2 weeks about school stuff.
I have it all the time.
But, I mean, it is true. Like, I mean, you know, when I was going to school, we got out very early in May, and we didn't go back until September, you know.
Well, and some people have the argument, well, why don't they just change the high school? Well, because families depend on their older children to look after their younger children. You know, that was there were a lot of reasons that changed. But that whole Labor Day thing is based on an agrarian calendar.
Yeah.
You know, change happens, and we don't handle change well. But that Labor Day change happened 40 years ago, at least, in many places. But, you know, as we got caught up with that. But these changes that we were implementing, plus we were strengthening our career technical program, which people who live here and pay school taxes have no clue how rich I'm talking about rich in teaching and opportunities and all this kind of stuff that our career technical programs offer at 100%.
Oh, it is. I invite everybody to look into it because it is very cool. I have gotten such a up close and personal view of it, and just the different. I mean, you got robotics, you've got small engine, you've got all these different categories and pathways and all these things that you can do at the high school, and it is remarkable. And these kids are smart.
Yeah. Well,
there's always that one, but
they've got skills that. Yes. And now we need to work on some common sense. I think with that generation.
Listen, I've already talked to him. I'm like, listen, we got to work on a couple of things. Them talking on the phone,
motivation, work ethic, those kinds of things. But
they are honing in on their skills.
Yes.
And I think that I'm gonna be honest. I feel like that's a change. Because when I came through, I had no idea, still to this day, do not know what I want to be when I grow up. And I wish I had something that could have helped me hone in on my skills when I was younger, so that I could have known, where I needed to go. But I think since I have left school, over the years, I know this school system is the one I have the most interaction with to know what's happening. But I will say that honing in on their skills helps you go ahead and kind of get your path cleared so you can figure out what you want to do. Because I was all over the place. I was going to be a doctor, an accountant, you name it. I was my daddy was done. But I feel like at our high school there's so many I don't even know, I guess, ways that you can take advantage of some really good programs. You can get into dual enrollment, you can get into youth apprenticeship, there's just so many ways that we've tried to, I guess you guys, I can't say we because I'm not part of that, especially building it, but y'all have created different ways for no matter what kind of learner you are, or no matter what, there's a place for you in our school system, and I think that's really cool. You know, whether you work well with your hands or you're, you know, book smart or whatever it is, helping you find what you're going to do.
Well, we started leaning towards a STEM or a STEAM. We had a strong, we were growing a strong fine arts program, performing arts program. But, you know, you have to wear in a pair of shoes. You try on different shoes, you know. We have this ninth grade thing where, they pick their classes in the ninth grade. How do you know what you're going to do in the ninth grade? Well, you don't.
You don't.
But you have 32. You have 32 slots to fill. It's kind of like an egg carton. 16 of them are academics: 4 math, 4 science, 4 English, 4 social studies. Okay. And then after that 16, you fill that up with, you know, with pathway electives. You're required to get 3 in a pathway. And I saw where one young man had completed, I don't know, 5 or 6 pathways. And if you do it, you could do that. But it's like trying on a pair of shoes. Does this fit? And there's so many occupations. I never would have believed that my path in the food business led me to education, really without skipping a beat. I mean, I had that associate's degree, and I could I just had to surrender and say, okay, God, I'm going to go get this education degree, and I'm going to get it in middle school. I really wanted to get it in adult ed because at the time, I thought I wanted to do workforce development, but nobody was offering that at the time. They said,
I was wondering, like, well, how did you not get into
that? Well, the general public reads at a 7th or 8th grade level. So get something in middle school, and you can probably do some graduates. And I'm thinking, graduate, I just got to get the 4-year degree. But, you know, eventually I did do grad. You know, we don't have to do it all at once, but allowing students to try and fulfill their opportunities. But back to this meal thing, we were doing all kinds of things in the early 2000s, and we were also looking at growth. You know, how the whole academy model was based on, you know, could you break one of those ways? Because how are you going to create our fine arts program in another part of the county? How are you going to create, you know, our construction or our welding or an automotive lab? You know. And so we had a lot of those discussions back then. But in 2002, when the mill closed, you know, that was a sad day in Camden County.
It changed everything.
A lot of people, you know, like a lot of the military people didn't understand it well, you know, got rid of that stinky old mill, whatever, you know. But that's not a slam to anybody. That was just not understanding the different roles and how so many families had evolved. But we started seeing that graduation rate go up because the mill was not the fallback. And it became a reality that, you know, I've got to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, even though the mill required a high school diploma to go to work, I was just standing. I had nothing to document it with, but just observing. I feel like there were, you know, folks that did not fulfill the full range of the high school curriculum. And at the time, honestly, you only needed 2 maths to graduate. Math 1 and Math 2. You didn't even have to take algebra.
Yeah.
And I mean, this was back in the you know, 90s.
Yeah.
But as we ramped up our curriculum and did so many other things, and there were so many moving parts all at the same time that, you know, that coming together, and I think our school system really stepped up to accommodate that. In fact, the Atlantic Monthly, which is a big, you know, that's a national magazine, they came down here and did 3 stories on us. James Fallows, and he's a part of the it's not coming to me right now, but it was a series that he was doing on, you know, communities that lose, you know, lose something. We had lost the mill. And so that was kind of the attraction for him coming to looking at our high school. One of the things that was said in that article was we were training students to go into the workforce. We didn't have any place to send them. because we didn't really have industry. Our industry was the military, and not everybody could go to work there. But as I watched all that evolve, and of course the other night at the Gavel to Gavel, and all of these folks are stepping up to getting an award, and I was honored, and there were other honorees, with the 40 over 40, and there were 3 or 4 of them that had been my students, years ago. But I was listening to the names, and I thought, okay, Rachel, you're getting really geriatric, because you are not. You don't know some of these people.
But you've stayed so involved.
Well, what it made me realize is that so many things that I wanted this community to have come. We went through 23 years of advocating to get that technical college.
I was about to say, because when I came here, y'all were getting the technical college. Here I am. I just become, just started working in the chamber, and, we were about to, and I did not realize how big of a deal it was until you sat me down and said, this is how long we've been waiting for this. Yes. This is why it's important. This is why, but that was a long time coming. And, there's so many things like that people don't realize. I mean, there was a whole, when Thiokol exploded, that was a whole thing here.
A game changer. It brought Head Start.
And it also, it made us, rely on the other counties around us
exactly
to help.
Yes.
And, it's times like that I think, man, I wish we could come together like that, without a dire emergency.
Well, but in our struggle to get the technical college, we had to do it twice, because we got the College of Coastal Georgia to put a satellite campus out behind the high school. And it had 8 technical programs in the blueprints. But the president at the time of the College of Coastal Georgia was very focused on the technical programs, but there were people that up in Brunswick that, they wanted to grow into being a 4-year college.
Yeah.
And so those two things collided, and we kind of got lost in the shuffle. And so we didn't get the technical programs in that original building with the College of Coastal Georgia. And, it was a whole lot of things that had to go on. The donation of land from the Gross family, the work that the chamber did to advocate for that. And, there were a lot of people that went in on that to make that happen. But, for a long time, people saw me coming. They'd find a hole to die, because I was pretty rabid about we had to get that in there. And now Coastal Pines, I talk to people every day.
Oh, don't get me started.
That do not know Coastal Pines is on May Creek Drive behind Cracker Barrel. Go online, get an appointment with them, sit down and talk to them on what program you want to get into.
Because there's so many, and it's such a good looking campus, and that they're wanting to expand some stuff. It's just, we've got some really great things here in Camden County, and I wish people would, stop complaining long enough to look around and have some fun here and get to know people and get involved with stuff you like to do,
Right.
It doesn't have to be outside in this heat. It can be, it can be something inside. It can be something so simple, and you have no idea the big difference it can make and what it can grow into. And that's what I am always encouraging people. Rachel Baldwin, I could keep you here. I've got 7 more questions I want to ask you, but I know people are probably like, all right, what are y'all doing? But I do want to bring you back in here at some point, because I want to talk about this stuff and talk about some of the changes you've seen. You've given me a lot of information today.
Well, there's Camden County geographically is one of the largest counties in Georgia, and it does have a lot of information and a lot of great people here with so much talent that we don't see it all. But I encourage people, when you're talking to new people moving in, you don't have to focus on the bad stuff. Look at all the good things we have, because we have to build on the good things.
We do.
And I just think it's real important that we make sure we've got our focus in the right direction. And, read the newspaper, go vote,
I
we
hope
have
Scott's
an
listening to
election
this.
in November and go vote. We have both city councils with people running on those, and the people closest to you are the ones that are going to impact you the most. We are 336 miles from the Capitol.
Yep.
And, it's important that we stay involved with all of that stuff. And I just encourage people to figure out what their niche is and get moving and quit waiting on, the magic bullet to come along and entertain you. Step up and do it for other folks.
Yes, I agree. And get involved. There are ways to get involved. And if you want to know answers to questions, ask the right people, the people that are going to know, and not just making up these opinions and then taking them as facts. I can't stand it. But I'm looking forward to having you back on here. We're going to get some more questions. We're going to get some more history out of you.
We'll see how this one goes.
All right. Well, thank you so much
for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. All right, guys, you have caught episode 108 of the Get in Your Business podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. And love where you live.